I know from several members of the U.S. Senate, I know of one directly, I know for a personal fact, has called the president and said he's got to go.
So, Rick, the Times reports today that Pete Hegseth left Trump in the dark in January and he
Mhm.
stopped Ukrainian weapons shipments to Kyiv
Right.
without the president's go ahead. What do you make of that?
Look, it's a combination of malfeasance and incompetence. Pete Hegseth not only didn't inform the president or the national security chain of command at the White House, but he was also in violation of federally authorized spending by Congress. So he did this in a way he, I believe, probably interpreted like thinking to himself, well, I'm going to send a signal to the Ukrainians about Trump's intentions when that is not his lane. That is not where he needs to play. And not only is it beyond his competence, but it was beyond his legal authority to do so.
Do you think it's a sign that Trump's lost control of his cabinet?
Trump never had control of his cabinet, not even from the first day. These people are all random actors. They're going to do what they think is best for their futures, their careers. Marco Rubio is wants to run for president. J.D. Vance wants to run for president. A couple of other members of the cabinet want to run for U.S. Senate. And all of them are thinking, how can I best position myself every day? How can I enrich my political portfolio every day? Um, and and Trump doesn't want people who are disloyal to him. He loves loyalty. He loves obedience. Um, but none of them are punished when they make mistakes. The only person who's gone down is Mike Waltz, and he's only gone down because J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio um, conspired against him to take him out. He would have survived otherwise. So, this is a don't think of this as the cabinet. Don't think of it as the old team of rivals. Think of this as rats in a bag eating each other to try to survive.
Do you think that Hegseth is going to go? I mean, there's a lot of people that think that they got rid of Waltz because his replacement doesn't need approval from
Right.
Congress. And so, Hegseth, they already spent so much political capital trying to get him in that they just can't afford to spend that to get another replacement in there.
Hegseth is a harder guy to drop, um, but at some point, the the incompetence and the breakage and the wreckage from Hegseth's absolutely incoherent role as SecDef and his personal problems are going to reach a crisis point. And I can tell you, I know from several members of the U.S. Senate, I know of one directly, I know for a personal fact, has called the president and said he's got to go. I know many others have, through the rumor chain, let it be known they have told the president Hegseth has to go. He is a dangerous incompetent. He is an alcoholic. He is a guy who lacks personal discipline, knowledge, or character. And right now we are on the verge of a very hot war between India and Pakistan. We are in a shooting match with the Houthis. They have not canceled the war, as Trump lied about today. We have the Middle East in absolute turmoil. We have a trade war around the world that is going to increase military tensions inevitably. And Pete Hegseth is exactly the wrong person for this job.
What do you think people inside the Pentagon are thinking at the moment?
I can tell you an awful lot of them are trying to wait him out, and they will. I've worked in the building. I've been a defense appointee in my youth. I can tell you the idea that Pete Hegseth was going to go in there and strip off from the walls of the Pentagon the paintings and the memorials and the statues of African American service members, uh, deeply, deeply, deeply pissed off not just African American service members, but the entire military. That this is something of which the U.S. military was justifiably proud, and Pete Hegseth has spent the majority of his incompetence on trying to quote purge DEI from the Pentagon. This is not a culture war organization. This is a word Pete Hegseth likes to use but doesn't understand. This is an actual warfighting organization. And none of the things that Hegseth has wanted to do so far inside the building have contributed to the morale or effectiveness of American troops.
I wanted to ask you about migration. So the U.S. is in talks with a number of countries, including Ukraine, to send migrants from the US and deport them abroad.
Right.
We had a really similar situation here where the previous government in the UK was, we had this deal in place to deport migrants to Rwanda. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
actually one of the countries that the
Mm-hmm.
US is talking to.
That's right.
And it didn't go very well. It turned out to be really costly.
Yeah.
It was pretty fruitless. It took a lot of time, and then it ended up just getting scrapped by the next government by the time they got it in
Sure.
place. I mean, surely that's going to have the exact same effect for the Trump
The ex-
administration.
the exact same thing will happen. But what is Trump doing here? He doesn't care about shipping migrants to Libya or Rwanda or wherever. Trump wants a reaction of outrage. He wants the reaction of disgust. He wants people to be offended and pissed off and enraged by this whole thing. And a lot of people will be. He doesn't want you to look at the fact that his family's running the biggest crypto scam in history. He doesn't want you to look at the fact that he's falling apart at the seams. He doesn't want you to look at the fact that he's driven the American economy into an economic dead end with this trade war. So I'm sort of processing this one as more trolling than policy at this point.
Yesterday, we had Mark Carney in the White House with Donald Trump in the Oval Office. How do you think that he did?
Oh, look, there's a scene in the in that movie, The Matrix, from years and years ago, where all these agents fire guns at Neo, and he holds his hand up, and the bullets drop. That was Mark Carney. He wasn't there to play Trump's game. He wasn't there to play into Trump's little traps. He wasn't going to let Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance roll him over like they tried to do with Zelensky. And you could see Trump's body language collapse. Watch the video. By the end of it, he's hunched over. His shoulders are slumped. His arms are crossed. It's defensive. It's small. It's weak. Mark Carney went in there because Mark Carney has a brain and ideas and is a leader. And Donald Trump got rolled over and spanked like an errant child because he is not the same intellectual capacity or quality as Mark Carney.
Do you think that's a sign to other leaders, that they should be taking Mark
Sure.
Carney's approach instead of?
Don't go in there and bow and scrape. It doesn't do any good. Don't go in there and say, "Oh, Mr. Trump, you're the tallest, handsomest man in the room." Go in there and represent your case. Be cool, be calm, be cold about it. Don't go in there pretending that there's some sort of game of kissing his rear that you can win. You can't. And the important part of this always will come down to a key realization that I think Carney has certainly had. I think Macron had it as well. Donald Trump is dumb. He is. He's not a smart man. And I don't mean to say he's not a feral, clever kind of politician from time to time, but Trump is not a bright guy. He does not understand the world. He does not understand diplomacy or the economy or anything beyond this very narrow bracket of what strokes his ego, what makes him money. And his ideas that he does have, tariffs, for instance, are terrible and dumb. And so it's not hard to outpunch this guy intellectually. He has a gift interpersonally that a lot of them have had to figure out that they've got to play a different game with him.
I want to ask you about the Democrats and kind of wider politics. So Joe Biden did an interview with the BBC, and he said he doesn't think it would have mattered if he had dropped out of the presidential race earlier. What was your take watching that?
I did hear it. I didn't see it. I listened to it. Look, there are a lot of counterfactuals from 2024, and I think that God loved Joe Biden and did a great job as president. He really took on COVID and restored the economy after COVID. Did some great things on infrastructure and manufacturing. The initial premise of Joe Biden in 2020 was that Joe was a transitional figure, that he would be a one and done. And I look back, and again, these are counterfactuals. It's hard to sort of, determine if they have a meaningful weight. But I think Joe Biden's unpopularity because of inflation infected the ticket in a pretty significant way. So I will agree with him in this point that it wouldn't have mattered if he went earlier or later. Harris would have still owned the Biden administration's unpopular position it found itself in because of high inflation. Now, would have more time have given her chances to improve further? Woulda, coulda, shoulda, maybe.
I'm here in the US at the moment, and there's kind of local election flyers everywhere for the primaries. It's mostly local, but there's a couple of congressional seats up for grabs and a couple
Sure,
of gubernatorial
Virginia, New
seats.
Jersey, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you think we're going to start to see a bit of a push towards the Democrats as a result of everything that's been going on? Or do you think, the kind of red wave is just going to continue to keep going?
It's hard to have a red wave when you've got a lot of red ink from a recession. And if you look at the prospects for a recession, they are very high now because of this insane trade war. If you look at the prospects for economic growth, they have diminished. If you look at the prospects for real income, it has diminished. If you look at the prospects for interest rates coming down, that has diminished. All of these things build into an economic position that every single Republican member of the House and the U.S. Senate has been all in on. Maybe Rand Paul's the one exception. But every single one of those folks went out and said, this is the greatest idea ever, Mr. President. They're on the record doing it. They also all were backing the DOGE cuts. In the state of Virginia, we have at least 3, maybe 4 congressional seats coming into play in Virginia, all of whom have seen cuts to federal workforce numbers in their districts of a minimum of 18,000 jobs. That's a real number in a congressional district that has 750,000 people. And a couple of them have numbers in like the 70s and 80,000s. These are going to be seats, I think, that are in great danger. The DOGE cuts are wildly unpopular. And again, these members of Congress did nothing. They sat quietly. They said, "Ooh, Elon Musk is a genius. What can I do?" And they screwed their own people. So I think you're going to see in these off-year races some signals about 26. They're not the final signals. They're not going to be the final terrain of the 26 battlefield. But I think you're going to see a lot of Republicans fall into a trap. They're going to believe that the 2024 electoral model still exists right now. Ultra high turnout from low propensity Republican voters. We score voters in America on a scale of 1 to 5. A 1 almost never votes. A 2 maybe votes in presidential elections. A 5 votes in every presidential election, every off-year election, every dog catcher race, the whole thing. Trump has been a master of bringing in 1s and 2s when he's on the ballot. A lot of these Republicans are going to lose those 1s and 2s, or a meaningful fraction of them. The numbers they thought were now theirs permanently of young voters, Hispanic men, and African-American men, if the public polling is anything to say about it, those numbers are crashing at a rate that, if I may quote Donald Trump, no one's ever seen before. And so I think their voter model is looking a lot tighter and more constricted than it would have otherwise. And again, as we get closer to 2026, that number will change. The economy, we don't know where it's going to be a year and a half from now. We don't know where it's going to be in October, September next year when early votes start being tallied.
I just have one final question for you, and it's a bit random. But Trump defunded the CASA organization, which helped provide legal aid for children.
Sure.
But notably, it was funded by a big sorority in the US, Kappa Alpha Theta.
Yep.
And for kind of UK viewers watching this, sororities and fraternities, more so sororities, typically do a lot of philanthropy work. And so this is the one that they'll work for. But the sororities are a bigger deal generally in Southern Republican areas.
Very much so.
Like, places like Arizona, Alabama, Mississippi, North
Florida,
Carolina.
Georgia, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that this kind of a thing, and as these groups get defunded, could this start to sow a bit of discontent in Trump's younger base? I mean, I'm imagining a kind of, a sorority girl really upset about this, complaining to her frat brother boyfriend who listens to Joe Rogan and, went out and voted at the ASU campus. That's kind of what I'm sort of imagining here.
I don't know this particular case and that particular sorority, but there was an expectation with these younger voters, a lot of whom in the South come out of as I do, came out of the fraternity system in college, Sigma Phi Epsilon. Was an expectation that Trump was all about good news economically, all about empowering them economically, and they don't look at Trump as I think in the same way now that the economy is closing in on them and job prospects are about to collapse. And I think if it combines with an economic downturn, the pettiness of a thing like cutting down CASA, the pettiness of closing down these programs that are do-gooder programs, I think that in the end of the day, when the economic crunch is hitting as well, it hurts him more. It's a combination of forces.